day and welcome back to Elementary 72 Gaming. So once again we kick off with the next chapter in the Tower of God. Obviously I have explained that I'm doing this whole walkthrough till we reach the current part of the story, 10 chapters at a time. So we're starting off with episode 21 and we will end off with episode 30 in this short segment. So let's kick it off. So it starts off with the rooms in the middle of this paper where we see Rap Devil being beaten down by Huriang, who actually possesses a devil in his right arm. And he basically threatens Rap Devil to never say that he's met him in his life. And we also get the whole situation that follows this here around Prince. Now, Prince, as we know, is going to die later on in the story. It is something really sad about the whole situation. I kind of forgot to put his picture up in the slide today, so unfortunately it's not going to be there. So after this here, we see that Huriang takes Prince with him and basically gets him to side with him. We see Wagner is busy with Lurker and he's basically beating Lurker down, and as he holds Lurker, he manages to duck a few of his attacks and he hurts him quite badly, dropping his little control items, allowing him to control Shinsu like a wave controller. And then he grabs one of his Shinsu bombs, which is about to throw in Lurker's mouth. And Lurker starts laughing and says that they're the same. And at this point here, we also get Prince listening in on the pocket from Huriang as Wagner and Lurker are in their heavy conversation when they talk about the fact that Lurker went through the same thing that Wagner was going through. And he basically explains how the boss of their company, their syndicate, basically held Prince as his true treasure. And you know, these are the small things that you have to think about in the whole situation. It shows how a parent can treasure something and still be an absolute monster, and how he tricked so many people and that he wanted the same people who he tricked to look after his treasure. And basically we see Wagner over there and he puts the Shinsu bomb in Lurker's mouth, and Lurker thinks he's about to die, and then he just drops it and he forgives Lurker instead. Now in terms of the reason for this here, there's quite a lot hanging in this entire situation. A lot of people will overlook the small thing as Wagner feeling guilty, but there's more to it than this. There's a lot more hiding under the surface for Wagner. We only get a hint of this here on the Hell Train. So yeah, we see this here and he says he thinks he should forgive him, and basically he still hits him and he still is angry with him, and he says he's gonna make sure that once he conquers this tower, nobody else ends up like him again. Now, there are reasons why the small little exchange between Lurker and Wagner holds such an important role. The first reason is Wagner and Lurker's exchange expresses something very important. Wagner has ideals, but he doesn't have the people around him or the confidence of others to actually hold them through to the end. He's someone very similar to, if I would compare from the words of Data Edwan, Jahad. He is exactly like Jahad. It is one of the reasons why I suspect that in the end it's going to be Wagner with Rachel versus Baum. And I suspect it's basically going to be the reverse of what happened with his mother. I think his mother was slightly treacherous at the end. She betrayed Jahad slightly, possibly that was the whole situation. or she turned on Jahad after the whole team basically agreed to go with his idea over V's, and it's something like that is going to play out in the end, because this is a parallel to them. And we see that Bam of Yeol is thanked at this point, and he hands over the connection to end the test. And the moment it's entered in, we see the exam is over. The winner of the exam is Jovial Grace, Wagnan, Gowaseng, Miseng, Huryang, Ark Raptor, Prince, and Iwa. 8 people passed the exam. Congratulations. And that is the end of episode 21. Now, there's a lot to do with what's going on in this year. This is the second team that Bam is part of. Now, if you count the 2 teams together, a lot of Bam's original teammates aren't in the team at this point. Altogether, there are about 14 of them at the moment. If you count it, it's Pericule, Rak, Kun, Enderossi, Shibisu. Oh wait, I'm about to break 14. So Pericule, Rak, Kun, Enderossi, Shibisu, Anak, Amigo. Right, those are all from the original flow. So there's 15 of them at the moment. So he has 15 companions. And we know he loses 2 from his original team later down the line. That makes it 13. If these 13 make it to the top of the tower, they are going to basically parallel the original journey up the tower. Remember, Jahad and his companions were the 13 warriors. They weren't Jahad and his companions, they were the 13 warriors. They went up the tower and Jahad ended up becoming king. We don't know what the story with Viol was. We just know that Viol was much more in contact and in understanding of the people in the tower. And that's all the way up to the Hell Train. So that means for the first 40 floors, he got a lot of the understanding from those around him. It's something very important for the later part when we wrap up the story, if we ever get to wrap to it in our lifetime. So let's continue on with episode 22. So we see exactly what Wagner did. He swapped the connectors around his connector with the connector of he swapped his connector with the connector that the Renka had, and he used that trick to get the results that he wanted. And immediately after the test, Wagner went back to see if he could find Naya and see if she was alive, but the door wouldn't open because nobody was alive within it, and that ends the whole exam. Then we see everybody celebrating their pass, and we see Yuan behaving all funny, and we see that she feels sick just looking at a can after what happened to her. And we see Miseng is really close with Wagner after this year. Now, obviously, these regulars have a very weird relation with each other at the moment. They are a makeshift team, and they've just started being a team with each other. And things are going to change from here on out. We're going to see a lot of their development. And then we see Wagner standing outside, and he sees Viol, and basically he starts apologizing, and he asks him to please not kill him. And he relates a lot with Viol. The one thing that he says that's really a catcher in this year is the tower creates walls between people. Now, you have to understand that Bam of Viol is thinking about Rachel at this point, and the fact that she's done so much for the tower against him already, just in the short time that he's been here, in those 5 years. And he hears the same thing that he wanted. He wants a place where everybody can smile under the same roof. and he wants a wider sky. So it's all the dreams that he has heard of and all the dreams that he wants. His dream is for everybody to be together like they were on the second floor where they were happy. Then we get Agaskas and Mule Love, and we see that Agaskas is actually talking down Mule because he took an illegal action against the regulars. Now, the illegal action that he took was actually interfering in an exam, and he actually cost the life of a regular in the process of his little attempt to get revenge, and he basically gives him a suspension and he forces him to pass the entire team. And he also expresses that instead of Mule beating the regular, he gave him some publicity and he's made him more powerful going up the tower. And then we see that Mule basically is complimented on the fact that he made him get a team. And basically Agaskas tells Mule Love, if you want to make it up, the whole chicken joke, basically get me chicken, he likes fried chicken, and the other one likes barbecue chicken. He says basically you can just dip it in sauce if you don't like fried chicken. That's how it goes. And then we see this whole thing end at this point. Then we see that Agaskas is actually a member of FUG when he says everything went according to plan. Yes, Prince passed our exam. And he says the Prince. Now at this point we didn't know who the Prince he was talking about was, and we still don't know whether they were talking about Prince or Wagnan. Wagnan is a Prince of Jahad and he has a very important part going up, and we also know that Prince was part of a syndicate, right? And we know that FUG has relations to a lot of the syndicates in the tower. Then we see Mule Love come in and he says he's going to treat them to a meal. After the fact that he says they passed and they say they want sweet and sour pork, he wants his barbecue chicken, which he's not going to get. They all eat and they rest, and then we see the 20th floor has ended. The end of this takes us up onto the 23rd floor, if I am correct, where we get Kun Aguero Agnes. And we see that he's talking with someone about a new Slayer nominee and the first Slayer since Karaka. And he says basically that he's extraordinary, but they can't trust FUG, and basically they have a good laugh about it, and they say that the new Slayer nominee drew with the Renka, and they ask from which family was he? Mule, and basically he says he's never heard of that lame family, and that is how it ends. Okay, sorry, that was the 25th floor, and the place where they were in was the Wolves Knot. So right, that is the end of episode 22, and we will head off to episode 23. Now things are about to change for the tone of the story big time. We get it back to Kun, and he is trying to bring Eden Dan into his team. Now Eden Dan is a very fast individual. He's a scout. He's the fastest scout at this level for E rank regulars. So Kun really wants to recruit him to force him to be part of his team, so they can climb up and have the possibility of taking out Rachel should she try to deceive them. And basically he used some deception to get him there in the form of telling him that he wants to catch a fish, and he asked how much it will be for the fish and how much it would cost for him to be on his team. So basically Aran says that he doesn't want to go, and at that point he says that he has 20th floor disorder, and that is where regulars can't take any more tests after taking exams on the 20th floor because they're tired of watching too many of their colleagues die. And as E rank regulars, their lifespan is extended by quite a bit, so they're going to have quite a long lifestyle, and they're already quite powerful compared to the regulars on the lower floors. But obviously there's one or two exceptions like irregulars or the princesses of Jahad. And then Kun actually tricks Edan by offering him a massive wager for a simple bet. The bet is if he can escape because he is so quick, that he'll give him a jewel of suspendium. And basically at that point, he says, but if you don't and he captures him before he leaves, then he has to serve Kun. And so he says, okay, try your best to get out of here, avoid those people, because I paid them all off before you arrived. So he says, even if you're fast, you think you'll be able to get out of here without hitting any of them. And at this point, we see that Edan notices the exit sign right next to him, and he falls for one of Kun's easy deceptions. He grabs the suspendium and he runs to the end of the tunnel, where he ends up hitting a wall. And basically Kun walks in behind him. Now we know that Kun is really, really fast, and Kun might be able to catch him if he really pushes it, but I doubt that was Kun's idea. You know, Kun likes to be sneaky instead of powerful. And then we see Edan run right past him, and basically as he's about to leave the store, he gets hit with the tranq dart. And then we see Kun coming to the front, and he says, you said you hadn't hired anyone, because when he did corner him, he says that it was a lie, he didn't hire anyone in the restaurant, and he said you trusted me. And basically it's a whole thing about falling for the trick. That is what Kun excels at. He made him believe there were enemies everywhere. Then he made him believe that it was all a trick to get him to use the exit only, which made him lower his guard in the front, and he decided to walk out instead of run out, which is where he had his true advantage. He decided to say that the bill was on Kun and tried to get away from the waiter who was actually hired by Kun, and that is how he ended up getting caught. He then gets dropped in, where we see that this team that Kun has assembled is really powerful. The top 5 E rank regulars, there's one of them in this team, that's Ran Kun. Then we get I'm forgetting the name of the other ones. So wait, anyway, I'll give you the full name of the teammates as we get it when it shows up. So nonetheless, we see Kun go over to Rachel. He knocks on the door, and that is where episode 23 ends. Now there's a lot to go through on all of this. I'm hoping to go through it at the end. I'm a bit slow on how I'm telling it. So Rachel tells him to come in. He walks into Rachel's room, and Rachel is acting crippled, and she's basically asking, how was the trip, did you find what you wanted? And then we get it switching back to Edan, or Dan, right? We're gonna call him that. And yes, the person who I was talking about in the top 10 E rank regulars is Novik. Now Novik is a member of the Ha family, or branch family of the Ha family, and basically he's there with Edan, and he's telling him that he's a spear bearer on the team. And basically he explained everything about how he was tricked, and Novik tells him to come and join the team. And basically Edan immediately notices that he's really strong. And he explains that he shouldn't show off because this team is really dangerous. And he explains that Rachel is upstairs and that she can't use her legs. And he explains that he heard that he's going up the tower to take Rachel to the top, and that is his current goal. So Edan asks, is Rachel his fiance? And Novik gives him a warning. If he points his finger and suggests that they engage, he's going to lose the finger because Kun will cut it off. And Rachel tries to play pity on Kun, saying that she met Bam in a dream, that he was in a dark place, and he asks her to save him, and she feels like Bam is still alive down there. Now this could be possibly true, because she could be feeling guilty about what she did. And we find out that now it's 6 years, so we know that the time skip has already accelerated. We know that we were at 5 years where Bam got his new team, or Biol got his new team. And then we see Kun trying to comfort Rachel, and basically she thanks him again. And then we see that Eran got the full story. And basically Novik says what he told him should stay between them, and he'll introduce him to the rest of the team. So finally they head out and they meet the rest of the team, and we see that they all are going to be introduced. So the gathering scout on the team is data gathering scout on the team is Apple. You can have 2 scouts on your team. It helps you plot your way through the front. Then they have a wave controller who's Michael, who's the first 2 I mentioned are both part of FUG, just by the way, so you should know that they're there for other nefarious purposes. Then they have another spear bearer who's also their cook, Gayateng, and then they have Ran Kun. And basically they explain that Gayateng is there because he could meet Ender Rossi, because Kun is actually one of the original teammates with Princess Ender Rossi, and Eran is even more shocked. And basically they explain that they were teammates and that they might meet up later as they go up the tower, that Anak and Hats are also part of that team. They're a really powerful team. Now, a part of the top 5 E-rank regulars is the following members. Baragrav from the Mad Dogs of Yama, who's a member of FUG basically. Then there's Kun Ran, Ender Rossi Jahad, Anak Jahad, and Jovial Grace. They make the top 5 E-rank regulars at this very point in the story. They are that crazy powerful, and the top 10 E-rank regulars falls all the way down to Novik. This team, having just 1 of the top 5 makes them crazy powerful. Having 2 of the top 10 puts them in another league altogether. I suspect that Kun is also in the top 10 E-rank regulars, although it may not be 100% on that claim, which would make them 3 extraordinarily powerful out of the top 10 in that one team. Then again, you have the team with Ender Rossi and Anak, who have 2 of the top 10 in their team, that makes them extremely powerful right at the front. So basically after this, we see Eran says there's a hierarchy in their team. They all get to fight to see where they pack in the pack order, and then we see Kun and Rachel finish off their whole story. And basically Kun says you shouldn't strain yourself, and he leaves the room, at which point Rachel jumps off her bed softly, stretches her leg, and basically she was worried that he came in so unannounced, and it's good being treated like a princess, but it's getting a bit boring, and just basically is complaining about the fact that she's getting such good treatment. And then we go back to Shibisu, sorry, not Shibisu, to Kun, and he's talking to Shibisu on the pocket, and they basically says he's gathered a new team and there's no need to delay any longer, they'll soon meet up again. And basically Kun explains Rachel's just fine, he's sure of it, and don't ask again, it's hard for him to believe, but he's sure, yes, she lied to them. And that is where episode 24 ends. Now there's a lot in this short section between the floors, and basically we get the 6 year ago fallback where Shibisu and Kun spoke. This is 26, and we see that Lero Rowe intentionally had a doctor come down to treat her legs, and he found out that the injury wasn't as bad as it was, and that she's been lying and that she could even walk. And they didn't understand what was going on. Why was she lying to them? Was she being threatened? And they needed to find out what's going on. So soon after they left the floor, they actually separated into 2 teams, but this wasn't explained here, so I'll explain it just now. So yeah, so Kun explains that he'll start a new team, he'll fall behind with Rachel, and he'll let the rest of them go up so he can be a protective boundary, and he can keep an eye on Rachel so that he can protect and kill her if need be. So after this year, we get back to their entire team. So we see that Eran Dan wants to take part in their hierarchy packing order fight, and we see that the other three members of the team instantly give up, and it's only Novik and Ran who basically haven't given up besides Eran. At this point, he realizes that something is wrong, and he says he likes a new member who got guts. And basically, he says he has a bad feeling about this, and before he can even say he gives up, he gets one hit out cold by Novik. And then we see that Novik is going to pick a fight with Ran. And then we see Eran with his cheeks both bruised from one hit, basically. And we see that they explain that Ran is possibly one of the top 5 E-rank regulars, and that Novik isn't that far behind. He's one of the top 10 E-rank regulars. That's how come he keeps fighting, but the difference between them is like night and day. And basically that ends their little skirmish. Then we see Kun get everybody together, and everybody is in uniforms with their ranking numbers. Now, Novik expected to beat Ran in their fight, so he made the number 1 shirt in his size, number 2 was in Novik's size, and then everybody goes down till number 6 is Edan. Dan, right? We'll just start calling him Dan. I'm not going to say Edan Dan, it just sounds so crazy. So basically, Kun has a good laugh at them, and he says that they went to sign up for the next exam, and that the next exam on the 24th floor will begin in a month, and that they're finally going to start climbing up the tower. And basically he explains to them his goal, that it is to become the head of the Kun family. And he explains that he needs this power. He promises that he will grant them wishes when he becomes the head of the Kun family. In exchange, he asks for one thing: to be a boundary that protects Rachel. And basically, he says they should always help her, be nice to her, and pretend to be friendly. But remember that they shouldn't let their guards down, and don't think that she is their friend. So basically, they can ignore her screams when the time comes. And they explain hate her because she's the girl who killed his best friend. And he explains that must be borne by the cruelest person. And we see Rachel in her room, and she's laughing about everything. And this is the 25th floor, the world's knot, and that is the end. So that is the end of episode 25. We're going to head on to episode 26. So this might be a really long episode because there's a lot to talk about in this short section of story. This has so much of context that it just becomes crazy. So we get to the 21st floor with the White Cloud City, the resident area for regulars, and we see Viol and his team. We see Miseng, and we see Yuan Yua. Oh no, sorry, this isn't Miseng. This is one of Yua's friends or family members. So basically, they talking about something, and they say that she needs to be on her guard because there's these evil guys from the 20th floor. They teamed up with Fug, and basically there's this evil slayer, and he has really evil teammates. And basically Iwa brags about the fact that she helped the team and that now she's carrying them up the tower, but that's not the real story. And basically there's this whole joke about it from Yua because she's trying to hide this here. And she expresses in her own thoughts that she happens to be one of those nasty teammates. And then we get back to the rest of them, and we see that Prince and Miseng are doing physical exercises and warming themselves up and getting themselves into shape. and basically they're all looking at what's going on in the house. And we see that Yua says, why isn't anybody keeping an eye on Viol when she's speaking to Arkraptor? And there's a lot to actually explain in this whole situation, because there's more than one emotion going on inside her head. It's really complex, and we'll get to it in a little bit when I finally can explain this. Yua is a complicated individual. She is a bag of worms, to say the least. Then we see that she's like... they can't trust Viol, and that she needs to keep an eye on him herself, and that and then Wagner explains he's been really kind to us. He rented the house, he's letting them stay inside. She gets away with without even doing a fair share of work, and basically all of this is said about him. Then Yua says he's a FAG member, and Wagner really hurts her feelings, because he says we prefer a FAG member than a member of a great family who burns toast. And basically she gets really upset about it, and she basically goes on to keep an eye on Viol all on her own. At this point things are really crazy, because Yua is angry, and she emits flames when she's angry. So she's in an elevator with regulars, and they're all looking at her really scared, because she can actually burn people quite easily. She finally catches up to Viol, because she actually has a tracker in his pocket, which he knows about, because you have to accept it. So he accepted it, and he's allowing her to follow him basically. And he walks over to a regular karaoke place, and then at that point we hear screams, and we heard that they heard that a member of FAG, Jovial Grace, is in there terrorizing the place. And basically Balm starts walking in, and we see that what is the name again? The guide from FAG, I'll remember her name in a little bit when I see her name. She is inside there, and she basically sees this guy fighting, and she basically calls him a pig, and she keeps insulting him. And then he starts attacking, and basically while he's attacking, Viol walks in, and he just hits him down. And then everybody starts screaming, because the real Viol appeared. And finally they walk into the pub, and Yua is like, what have you done? And he's just standing there, and he's done nothing, right? He's actually done a good thing instead of an evil thing. But it's just the way that people behave, and we see all of the side stories from them in the aftermath of this episode. So we're gonna get to episode 27 now, and yeah, so anyway, we get this whole entrance, and we see someone really not expected at this point in the story. We see Jin Sang Ha. Oh, my mistake. I do have a Jin Sang. Yeah, there we go. Jin Sang Ha enters behind Yua, and basically everybody figures out that it's FAG, and basically Yua looks at them, and she's like, she's from one of the great families. And Jin Sang asks if she is a spy for the Yuan family, and then basically they say this is Viol's teammate. So Jin Sang says, oh, so Yua starts screaming and going crazy, and Viol tries to talk her down. He says that's a high ranker, and basically she says she's not afraid of high rankers. So Balm knocks her down with a hard hit, knocking her out. And basically he gets this comment from Jin Sang that he's really harsh with the girls. And
they start talking about stuff and basically said they'll take her home and he's going with them. And they start moving up, and finally they arrive at the apartment that Balm is renting, or Viol is renting, and we see that everybody is meeting with the FUG members. Jin Sang Ha is here to see who tricked his favorite student. That's the reason why he's here. I'm forgetting her name. Hwari Yun. Hwari Yun is here because she is here to guide Balm and guide the team that's with him. Now, guiding Balm is quite difficult. You cannot see the path that Balm is taking. It is his own path. All she can see is the results of his choices. So that's all that she can explain. And basically everybody is talking and having a conversation with the FUG members. And then we see that Jin Sang is afraid that they're gonna bully his favorite student. And basically he starts asking him if they make him do household chores. And we see that everybody is sitting around, and Arc Raptor is looking after Yua. And Yua says FUG can't be trusted. And we're gonna get a brief introspective into FUG with this whole situation. And then we see Yua explain something. The reason why she hasn't left Balm's side is because if she leaves Balm's side, she's uncontrollable and she may hurt her next team. And Balm is the only person who can actually keep her in place, Viol. And I'm suspecting that Viol is going to be his real name in the end. I suspect that it's been given to him in the fairness of love and camaraderie. And she is basically sticking with that because of that. And the second thing is that she feels really indebted to Balm, and she can't let it go. That she's from a great family and she can't control her own power, and that it's so dangerous. And basically it's explained that everybody in that team needs Viol. We see that Jin Sang starts bragging and saying that he's a real genius and that he masters moves after seeing them once. Now this is something else which is a big shock because he's never seen it before in his life, and it's something so crazy that he had to keep explaining it. At some point, Warrior explains that Viol goes away when Jin Sang starts saying stupid things. And basically he says he's going to go find Viol, and we see that everybody is ready to go sleep. Warrior sits with Wagnan, and she says that she's gonna congratulate them because Jin Sang Ha was here to kill them, and fortunately for them, they managed to convince him not to do that. So yeah, I'm just looking through the images of the story, by the way, so that I'm not deviating too far ahead. It's a way for me to keep myself in check. It's really difficult at this point because there's so much of information in such a short portion. And then they explain, did you hear about the irregular who entered the tower 6 years ago? And basically they explain that Viol is the irregular, and it's because of Jahad's contract that nobody can kill him, but irregulars can, and that is who Balm is. And basically when he reaches the top of the tower, everything in the tower will change. That is the end of episode 27. Now we're getting these hints from SIU throughout it, and then we get to see the next part of this chapter because a lot of things are going to go crazy. So we see that Jin Sang Ha basically says that he'll talk to Mashaya and he'll get Mashaya to change his idea about the team and try and give him the go-ahead of keeping a team of his own choice, and that he wants to see Viol happy. and that he's really sorry that he's one of the reasons why he isn't living a happy life. So Wagner goes on and he asks Waryun why did he become a slayer, and Waryun says he didn't become a slayer because he wanted to kill Jahad. He did it because he must kill Jahad. And basically they explain that as long as Viol is in their hands, he can't get away because they've actually threatened him. And basically they go through the whole story with Han Sang-yu and what he did, and the fact that he put rings on each of his friends' hands, and he'll kill each of them every time Bam hesitates, and that there is putting Viol in the situation where he is. And Han Sang-yu basically really picked on Viol at this point, where he told him that Rachel most likely sees the garbage at the top of the tower to be more important than Viol, and that's why she chose to betray him. And he also says, let's see how many of your friends survive as we go up the tower. And then that is where Hansang was introduced. And Waryun explained this to Wagner. And basically, if he fails a test or if he refuses to live as a slayer, all of his old friends will die. And that Viol wants to protect them. And Waryun basically asks Wagner, did you really think they were good guys? Wagner looks up and he thinks that this was so cruel, and he remembers what he was going through. And they basically go through all of the stuff, and they say, if we didn't do this here, who's going to kill Jahad for us? Are you going to do it? And basically we see Viol standing on the roof looking up at the sky like he always does, and we see they're sitting together. And we see Wagner compliment him that he's an amazingly good guy, and that if he were his friend, he wouldn't regret risking his life for him. So they say, let's pass the next exam no matter what, and basically Bam has made more friends. And then we see Yua come up to the roof, and basically she's been stalking Bam, and Wagner basically implies exactly what she's after. And basically he implies that she's up to no good, and we do know that she's up to no good because even though she does not flaunt it, she does have a crush on Bam. And basically she releases this little statement which implies that she's really into Bam, and she's jealous of Yua. Not Yua. Yua is jealous of Waryun, and she says, did you let it get a taste of your fingers the way you allowed me? And basically we see that they keep fighting. And then we see Jin Sang Ha look across, and we see that Karaka is watching over all of this. And then we go back to the 21st floor exam, and they take the test, and at the end of it we see they enter the exam area, and that is where this one ends. And then we're gonna get to 29. Now I'm gonna go through 29 and 30 as quickly as possible. This episode is crazy long. I expect it to be a bit long because I still need to explain everything that's going on. The test is basically called off because the other team quit when they heard that Fug was on the other side. And we find out that they planning another exam for them in place of fighting another regular team, and they go to the inner tower borderline, and that's the C in the 21st floor. This is one of the Yuan family floors, and we see that everybody is rubbing on suntan lotion and stuff because they're in this pool like area, and everybody is getting ready to play. And then they noted that the exam area is about to show up, And then we see it's a Zigna. A Zigna is one of these magical creatures from the tower. It's a Shinwei, and it has a habit of sunbathing, and it flips itself every 30 minutes from side to side to actually get a fair toast on each side of its body. And at this point, we see that they need to go inside and they need to find a flower of Zigna. And we see the creature roars, and they're basically getting ready to board it, and they explain to them that they need to get the jewel, and if they get the jewel, they pass the test. And they're told they're going to use a motorboat to get on top, and basically they climb up on the Zigna and they find its blowhole, and they decide that one team will go down here and the other team will go down on the other side so that they can cover more area. Oh wait, the Zigna surfaces for 2.5 hours to sunbathe. It flips every 30 minutes, and it's important to find the right timing. If you're too early or too late, it may cost you your life, because when it flips over, the entire place that they're in turns on its head, and if you're in the wrong place, you can end up dead basically. So the first team that goes down is Prince, Huryang, Yiwa, and Bam. They're the first team that goes down, and the motor isn't working on their motorboat, and then Yiwa burns the motor. And finally, the Shinwei turns over, and it blows out water through its blowhole. And we see that the others on the other side manage to get in, and everybody is inside the Zigna. Then we see that it's rumbling, and we see the Zigna flower, and we see somebody on their back, and that turns out that it's Yurik Mazino. And that is the end of episode 29. Now we're going to go on to episode 30, and there's a ton to talk about on this side because things get way more crazy. So we see Yiwa gets up on the top, and she basically says she almost died, and she's looking if everybody else has made it. She's wondering if they're all dead. And while she's screaming and she's basically tormenting at them, basically they explain what happened. They saw her swimming away, and they didn't want to disturb her. They all jumped on Huryang, and they let him take them up, and they just left Bam up here to wait for her, and they're gonna board in now while they're waiting for their clothes to dry. And they run in and they jump inside, and they have limited information on the flower of Zigna. And basically all they know is it only grows inside the Zigna, and that it's only on the 21st floor. Then they enter into this weird room where there's these big rings floating around, and they're basically wondering how they get across. At this point, a little pig-like creature with a flower on it runs past, and then they realize that's a Zigna flower. And Wagnan starts chasing after it, because if they catch it, they pass the test. And basically he says, give me that flower, and they start running and they start chasing it. Then we find out about one or two of the lighthouse moves, as they use one of them to trap it, called inflow and flow control. So basically they try to catch the Zigna, but it's very, very quick and it's running. It is a Zigna, it's a baby Zigna, just by the way. And we see that Arkraptor and Huryang go to a certain place inside the body where they hear rumbling, and they see a giant parasite come collapsing down. And we see that Prince uses the field control ability, and he uses it to help Huryang take down one of the parasites. And Huryang explains that it looked like that parasite was running from something. At that point, a big crashing sound comes in with a whole lot of the parasites getting knocked out, and they see someone there. And basically, Huryang tells Prince to run. At that point, we see Viol enters in, and we see that he notices that something is wrong, and that is where episode 30 ends. Now, this is going to have a lot to talk about at the end of this chapter, because there is a ton to actually go over from this particular chapter in the story. So we get the whole idea of what Kun is up to. We get the idea of what he's climbing the tower for. He wants to take the place of his father. He wants to become the family head of the Kun family so that he can have that power and authority that one of the 10 family heads has. We also see a lot of underlying situations in that whole situation with Rachel. We see that he's planning on killing her at some point, guaranteed, and we see that he's setting up a team that's both going to carry her up the tower and kill her at the drop of a hat, which is why he has such crazy powerful individuals in that team. The other things to note about it were the small little hidden details in everything that we're getting. We're getting the parallels being drawn with each of the teammates. We're seeing that Kun is best friends with Vio, and we see that that best friend relationship is one of the strongest that he has. We then see that he also has a good relationship later down the line with Wagner, and this here is all relating to what I believe is going to be the underlying plot for the next part of the story. Now I know that this is a really long pitch, but this is where the story gets really intense. The amount of story in this section is more than there was in any other part of the tower so far. Chapter 1 or season 1 has nothing compared to this 20-page section of the story, and that's the story between the test and the workshop battle. When it comes to all of the ideals that we learn, the way we learn the loyalties of the individuals, Wagner seems like a very good person to trust. However, his ideals are very shallow and they don't really reflect that of many of those around him. He doesn't really care for a lot of people. He cares for some of the wrongs that he sees, and he tries to repair just those things. He doesn't try to push himself beyond that limit. And then we get Bam, who just cares way too much about people. He cares so much that he's willing to sacrifice his own freedom for them, and we get that as a hint. We see that Fug is after destroying Jahad for some reason. We get this little hint that there are factions within them. We see that there's people who actually care about Bam and people who don't care about Bam within Fug. We see that they just want to use him as a tool, and they want to care about him as an individual from two different sides of Fug. So we see that Fug isn't as good as it seems, and it's not as evil as it seems as well. And as we go up the tower, Fug seems more and more good, like when we reach season 3. In season 3, we see how crazy things were with Jahad's forces in the past, and we get the hint of why it's so important that Bam is in the tower right now and the things that are going down. So yeah, those were important things to outline. Then we get the tower, the Zigna test arc. It's a small arc, but it has a lot to play in it because Yurik Mazino makes his first showing over here. When he makes his first showing, obviously we're going to get a lot of info on irregulars just based on how powerful he is. We get the hint that that the rankers of the tower are like flies to an irregular, and we see how crazy powerful he is, and we then understand why Bam is so difficult. Remember, on the 20th floor he's already ranker level power. By the time he goes another 10 floors up and gains the power of a thorn, he's most probably doubled or tripled that power. So if you had to say that he is a rank regular level at this point, wouldn't be an underestimation, and this is without the power of a thorn. So yeah, you should understand that is how crazy Bam is. And later on in the story, when we see Bam taking out rankers, everybody is like, he's so overpowered and his power up came out of nowhere. From the time we were in season 1, he was equal to a ranker without Shinsu. Then at the end of season 2, in season 2's start, is equal to a ranker with unlimited Shinsu at their control, fighting him as a regular. So that is another way of looking at it. Bam was that crazy just on the 20th floor. Then we get the whole thing with him getting stronger to keep climbing up the tower. We see that he actually puts up a fight against Yurik Mazino, and against Yurik Mazino, who even 1,000 rankers wouldn't be able to hurt, he actually gets a single scratch on Yurik. And that is because he defended one of his teammates while he was fighting Yurik instead of going full out for the assault. he decided to defend one of his teammates over hit Yurik, and Yurik realized that the amount of power that Kid has was insane. He basically wanted to give him a wing tree badge at that point, to give him like a single badge feather as a regular. That is how crazy he was as an irregular against regulars. And that says something. It says that he was already at a rank where he was superior to most rankers, and he's still getting stronger as he's going up the tower. And he gets even more insane once he gets the thorn, and then we get the whole Hell Train arc with White on it, and White has the power of a regular basically as well. Not regular as a ranker, and that is one of the crazy things. Once he reaches that level, that is where Balm becomes insane. Balm already had the power of a ranker before he left the train. Then he learns how to use his irregular powers on the train, and that is all coming up in this season. But this is a very long season, and this will take a few weeks for even me to get through. So I hope that you all did enjoy, and I will catch you all in the next Tower of God.